Hello, on this beginning of the new liturgical year, our first Sunday in the season of Advent. And I want to talk about something that I hate doing, and that is waiting. Okay, so I like to golf, so there's nothing worse than constantly waiting for the group in front of you to hit their balls and to finish the hole. It often affects my game in a negative way. As soon as I hit a bad shot, I blame it on the wait in frustration and critiques. And I think many of you can also relate in other capacity as well. We usually wait at the doctor's office, right? That whole procedure. You go in, you check in, and then you wait to get called. And then they call you in, and then they weigh you. And then you wait again in another office. And then someone comes in and does your blood pressure, and then you wait again. you know that's my experience. I don't know if that's your experience. We hate to wait for our food at the restaurant, and long story short, I think many of us grow impatient with waiting. And what do? We get agitated, we get angry, and sometimes maybe we even let it out on some poor person who has nothing to do with the fact that we're waiting. You know, we let the waitress or the waiter have it, even though it might not even be their fault. We the attendants in the doctor's office, we let them have it. Maybe if we're having a bad day, maybe others we just kind of internalize it. But either way, waiting is the theme of Advent. So we look at, first and foremost, the people waiting for the arrival of Jesus Christ. So if you remember, the kingdom is destroyed in 582 BC. Jerusalem's gone, the kingdom's gone, the temple's gone. And you get these messages from the prophets of hope, of restoration, that God has not forgotten his covenant. God has not forgotten his people. And God will one day restore all things. But they had to wait for that. And in fact, they wait for almost 600 years until finally in the Gospel of Luke, Luke especially, but Matthew too, in those infancy narratives, that God is finally acting on the promises that he made. But still, 600 years, God bless those people. God bless those followers in the time who still stuck with it, who didn't give up. With the greatest examples being of Joseph and Mary and John the Baptist, Zachariah and Elizabeth, all those characters in the story, all waiting patiently until it finally happens. And then also during Advent season, we await the second Advent. That is the coming of the Son of Man to definitively restore all things. Restore them to the way they were meant to be. No more sin, no more suffering, no more death, especially. But we've been waiting for 2,000 years now for that, and who knows how long, until God, in his mysterious will, definitively decides to end this age, and to begin the stage of really the last stage, the eternal stage of eternal life. And so all of this requires waiting. Okay, and so there is a spiritual benefit to waiting. Okay, it does something to us in a good way. And those moments in the doctor's office and on the golf course and in the restaurant and at home waiting for your spouse to get ready to go out, they all do something which can help us in our spiritual lives, in our lives of faith. And that is develop that of humility. That in waiting, whatever it is that we're waiting, hopefully we can come to recognize, but more importantly, to accept the fact that there are many things in life that are outside of our control. Okay, whether it's waiting for food, waiting for to hit the next golf shot, or waiting for your doctor to attend to you. We have no control of that. All we can do is get agitated and complain, okay? But I think all of us will admit that's not generally the space we want to be in, emotionally. We don't want to be agitated. We don't want to snap at someone. We don't enjoy that part of ourselves. And so these little moments of waiting also help us with the bigger moments of waiting, the more serious moments of waiting, where we're waiting for God, not only in his second advent, but waiting for us to hear and answer our prayers, because that's also part of the process in our prayer lives, right? Usually things don't happen simultaneously. We don't pray and all of a sudden our prayer is granted right there. There's a period of waiting, okay? And it can be very frustrating and very desolate. But again, it helps us to set aside our ego, to take on and clothe ourselves with humility, and most importantly, to surrender to God's divine providence in all things. Okay, this is a leads to a life of peace. Where instead of getting agitated, instead of letting that peace kind of be disturbed in our lives, to be comfortable and to say, God, all things are in your hands. You have me waiting at this moment, for a particular reason. I might not know what it is right now, but at the very least, help me to grow in that virtue of humility, and to know that there's other people in the world, and it just doesn't revolve around my constant wants and needs and desires, that you're in control of all things. And so during the season of Advent, let us practice that important spiritual part of our lives, and that is of waiting patiently for the Lord to address our needs, our concerns, and to know and understand that his divine providence, his divine timing, that is far superior than what I have to offer. Okay, and with that, hopefully, with that mentality and with that building up of that strength, we can get less agitated, more peaceful, and rest in the Lord. May God bless you.